afternoon. This is Jamal Hasan from the Voice Studio in Washington, D.C., USA. Welcome to my show. The voice is your voice. Today, I'm going to introduce Dr. Shabbir Ahmed. Shabbir Ahmed is a former adjunct faculty with the University of North Florida and Florida State College, Jacksonville. He obtained his Ph.D. Civil engineering from CUNY, the City University of New York, and he obtained his master's in science from University of Tennessee and Bachelor of Science from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology and MS in Water Resource Engineering from the same university in Bangladesh. Dr. Shabbir Ahmed, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jamal Hasan, for giving me the opportunity to take part in your channel, The Voice. Thank you.
Today, our topic would be Iran and Bangladesh, a tale of two countries. Dr. Shabbir Ahmed, we know that you are a writer and a thinker, an avid reader of world politics. So I know that you have been keenly following the events in Iran. We don't know that today or tomorrow, the current regime, the Islamo-fascist regime of Ayatollah Khamenei, will be toppled. We don't know if Iranian people will prevail with or without American assistance or Israeli help. So, Dr. Ahmed, you have been following Bangladesh situation, and I know that you, like many of us, are looking forward to seeing Bangladesh a prosperous, modernist, secular country. But at the moment, Bangladesh has fallen prey to global jihadists, and Mr. Yunus, unfortunately, Western-trained, Western-educated Dr. Muhammad Yunus is working, meticulously designing to transform Bangladesh into another Taliban country. So Dr. Shabbir Ahmed, would you please give your take on this? What's going on in Bangladesh?
Thank you again. Yes, we need to go back to the events that occurred in 1978 when there was a movement against the Shah of Iran. I was an undergraduate, second year undergraduate student in 1978.
And ultimately it culminated in 79, you were saying.
Yeah. From starting 1978 to 1979, there was a huge movement. It was orchestrated by all factions, all different factions of Iranians. And the Ayatollahs, the Islamists were behind. They did not come forward. They were like acting as if they were guardians, all the Ayatollahs. And believing in that, the secularists, the liberal democratic minded people, they did not think that it will be an Islamic revolution. So all of them took part to get Iran into a democratic path. They thought that Shah was, a dictator, and it's a kingdom. Of course, it was a kingdom, and so that's why all different parties took part. And importantly, you can notice that there was a big socialist party, Tudeh party, and you can see that in the north of Iran, it was Soviet Union at the time. So they were having their people acting in Iran to get Iran into the socialist path. And all of them actually were united. And very interestingly, the Ayatollahs remained behind the curtain. They acted as if they are guardians, and they are just advisors to get rid of Shah of Iran. But Shah was actually trying to get Iran into the path of modern European Western type country, and he did a lot of developments and all these, but everything did not help in his favor, even though he upgraded the quality of life of many Iranians back at the time. And basically, and as you mentioned about Bangladesh, you see in 2024, the The movement the government of Awami League under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the movement was orchestrated by a group of Islamists, but they remained behind. They did not come forward. They did not say upfront that we are going to get rid of the government. They were using some sort of deceptive techniques, just like in a similar fashion that Iranian Ayatollahs, Islamists did, and in Bangladesh they did this in a similar fashion. Yeah, they remained hidden, but they orchestrated the movement and against Sheikh Hasina, the prime minister. She wanted to get Bangladesh into a liberal democratic path and in the development path. And she did many developments. I mean, during our lifetime, when we were like young, we could not imagine that we'll be able to cross Podda River or we'll be able to cross Jamuna River by rail. But she did all these, many other developments, enormous developments she did. Even her enemies will not disagree. Just like Shah was trying to enhance the quality of life of the people of Iran back in his time. But all the liberal parties, all the liberal factions, all the socialists, they were united, but Islamists remained behind. And immediately after the fall of Shah, the Ayatollahs took control of everything. Like first they did was they took control of the judiciary. There was a Ayatollah named Ayatollah Beheshti. He probably became the chief justice of Supreme Court almost immediately after the fall of Shah. And then there was another Ayatollah became judge. His name was very much everywhere. Ayatollah Khalkhali. He was like you know issuing verdicts for death sentence to almost everyone who was under his uh, judicial power. Whoever went with justice, I mean, they were tried in the lower court, but whenever it went to Khalkhali, he was just giving death sentence, especially those who are working for during the time of Shah and all this. And they were, I mean, very badly they were executed. And also, what they did was they took control of the parliament. But initially, what they did, they actually installed Bani Sadr. He was actually a socialist type person, a political thinker. He was aligned with Dr. Mossadegh. It was in 1953. Mossadegh was elected, and Bani Sadr was with him. But Bani Sadr also took part in the movement, and he thought that all Ayatollahs are like his holy man, guardians, helping them to get Iran out of the monarchy. So, but initially, all the liberal parties and socialist parties uh, were still on the street, and Ayatollahs played a trick. They actually installed Bani Sadr as the president, and just to keep the liberal factions of the movement and socialists keep them happy. But as soon as Bani Sadr realized that the Ayatollahs are taking Iran backward under a theocratic, rigid regime, then he started resisting them. And at one point of time, they actually impeached him. And Bani Sadr realized that he was going to be executed very soon. So he actually took help from a pilot in Air Force who was also trying to get out of Iran at the time, and he took that jet, and this pilot actually boarded President Bani Sadr, flew to Turkey, and then from there he went to France. In our Bangladesh, is Dr. Yunus. Everyone knew that he was going to be a liberal Democrat, and he was not going to be an Islamist anyway. But you see, he's patronizing Islamic parties. He released all the terrorists, Islamic terrorists, those who were arrested by the former government, they were in jail. He released all of them, and he's patronizing Jamaat-e-Islami and all other Islamic parties. And now we see similarities, but there's a difference between Bani Sadr and Dr. Yunus. Bani Sadr tried to resist, and that's why he had to flee. But in Bangladesh, Dr. Yunus is helping the Islamists to grow, patronizing them.
That's why, Dr. Ahmed, it's not surprising when Dr. Muhammad Yunus, while visiting New York during a United Nations session, he proudly showed Mahfuz Alam, a jihadi operative who used to be part of Hizbut Tahrir in Bangladesh, which is a banned outfit, who was in jail during Sheikh Hasina administration. He was proudly showing Bill Clinton without any shame that this is the gentleman who helped me topple a government, quote unquote, fascist government. This is the gentleman who made the great design to oust the government of Awami League. And Mr. Clinton and his other aides were kindly mesmerized listening to the oratory of Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus was basically showing a jihadi on American soil as the liberator of Bangladesh. So I would say if the two countries, if we compare, uh, obviously in Iran, Tudeh party, which was a socialist or you can call it a communist, Tudeh party was more or less a pro-Moscow, played a pivotal role in ousting King Reza Pahlavi of Iran. Similarly, in Bangladesh, we see now pro-Moscow Communist Party, CPB, or Junaid Saki, another leftist or pro-socialist, or even Anu Muhammad. These names come up, when they are leftist and nothing close to any jihad or Islamism. These so-called left, liberal, or communist entities, they supported wholeheartedly the July upheaval of 2024. Uh, and as we go along, Dr. Ahmed, in talking about, I have some comment before you start your point, that about the diaspora, that if we compare Iranian diaspora or Bangladeshi diaspora abroad, like my observation, because I've been with the Iranian community for a long time, even in 40 years ago, I even participated in anti-Khomeini rally in DC. And my observation is that 70% Iranians are very secular who live abroad. I'm not talking about inside Iran. I'm talking about Iranians living in Canada, USA, Germany, UK. More than 70% probably, very secular and far from being Islamists. On the other hand, my observation is uh, expatriate Bangladeshis living in America, UK, or anywhere else. I take it for granted that if I meet any Bangladeshi, I would know that he or she would be anti-Awami League and don't care about liberation war that much. And maybe they support a little bit of BNP Jamaat axis. So when this movement was coming, for example, this July upheaval in Bangladesh, many of the Bangladeshi diaspora, they supported wholeheartedly this jihadi movement of Bangladesh. On the other hand, Iranians living abroad are very much anti-jihad, anti-Khomeini. Do you want to give your point on this aspect? Uh,
Yes, yeah, I can give some my aspects about it. In fact, during the movement against Shah, most of the Iranians were supporting the agitators, those who are doing the movement, and they are supporting the fall of Shah. But as soon as they realized almost within a short span of time, as soon as they realized that the regime of Ayatollahs are taking Iran into a dark path, then they started realizing that they were better off before than what happened after the fall of Shah. Then they started evaluating and reevaluating Shah of Iran. So it happened, and I had, a number of friends who are doing graduate studies at City University of New York as a student back in 1987 through I finished in 1991. So back at the time, I had many discussions. There are a few faculties at the university in our department. I actually had chance to talk with them, and they all said that they were thinking about getting into a democratic path and all this. I wanted to get rid of monarchy, but they realized that they realized later that Ayatollahs were taking Iran much backward. The women's rights were totally, cut down, and then they realized that Shah was actually promoting more and more education for women. More and more women were included in the decision making process. For example, there were politicians, there were university faculties, in government jobs. He encouraged employment of women. He actually promoted them. He also did one thing that actually angered the conservative ayatollahs for actually uplifting the women. The ayatollahs became, or conservative faction of Iranians, they became angry with the Shah. But he was taking Iran into a Western path. He was in terms of development and in terms of freedom of movement and all this. But they realized it later that what Shah was doing actually was good for Iran. Shah was a great patriot, as I found out myself. He was a great patriot for Iran. He wanted to uplift and upgrade the quality of life of all Iranians, even those landless Iranians, those who are actually deprived of land and all this. He was giving them land through some land reform. The government lands, he gave them ownership, so they were working for their own land, and that also angered the landlords because they were getting very cheap labor by exploiting those people. So in fact, many people from top to bottom became angry, but he was actually doing what good for the mass people of Iran. You compare with Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She was giving allowance. She was buying food and giving at a very low price to the needy families, a very low price through Trading Corporation of Bangladesh. This Yunus government came in. I heard that he cancelled many of these, supporting programs, and the, like giving people with reduced price. This whole program through Trading Corporation of Bangladesh, Dr. Yunus has just cancelled it. That I know for sure. I read in newspapers and through other media. I came to know. So then people realized it later and more, and then they started evaluating and reevaluating the activities of the ayatollahs, and they did not think before that these Islamists will take Iran into a dark path. So the more and more these Iranians became anti-Sharia. More and more Iranians started thinking about going back to the path where they were before. They had a very rich cultural history and all this. Most of the things were destroyed. The Islamists destroyed many of the cultural heritage that Iran carried for centuries. I came to know from many of my friends from Iran. So that's what is this relation came later, and more time went on, and people were becoming. In fact, in during the moment of during the Bangladesh movement of 2024, many people, you know, in living abroad, and many people in Bangladesh supported the movement without knowing the consequences. But now, gradually, people are realizing. More and more people, more and more young people, more and more students are realizing that what they did a big mistake uh, in 2024. They were deceived.
You
But
can say that better later, late than never.
better late than never, right? But they are realizing. But problem is, if you make this level of change in a country, it's not reversible very easily. Think about Iran. Iran was such a nice country. Iran was, like kind of an European country in that part of the world. And now Iran has gone back and gone backward, and people are trying since 1979. Since 1979, they came into power. Since 1979, many people realized now it is like 21 plus 20, actually 47 years now, and
You
still
can say,
people are
uh,
fighting.
Dr. Ahmed, one thing, there are different kind of autocracy in the world. If you just bring the subjects of authoritarian rulers, you can say most of the Gulf states or many of the Arab countries, they are not epitomes of democracy. You know that they are ruled by royal families, and there are a degree of authoritarianism in those countries, including UAE, Qatar, or you can say Saudi Arabia. And in many cases, if you compare even the rule of Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League, when for more than 16 years the party ruled, we saw dissenting opinions like Rumin Farhana or even Asif Nazrul, people like that, or even the Daily Star, Pratham Alo, they were always against Sheikh Hasina administration. And this type of thing would never occur in a country like Qatar or Saudi Arabia. Nonetheless, Western world, including America, always, basically was very much critical of Sheikh Hasina administration. They wanted more of a democracy, almost like Westminster style of democracy. So this is one thing. And so I'm talking about the subject of authoritarianism or autocracy. On the other hand, I can say when uh, church and state are united, when there is no separation of church or mosque and state, then the situation become more dismal. And you know that when Ayatollah regime, the Islamo-fascist regime, their main goal is martyrdom and jihad. They don't cherish life, they cherish martyrdom. In a sense, they don't mind dying for a cause, and that is a danger. And I would say this is the idea that can come direct in collision course with the modernity and the Western civilization. So um, it's very unfortunate when I see even some of the Bangladeshi journalists or YouTubers sometimes they side with the Islamofascist ayatollahs. On the other hand, they may not like Jamaat, but in a sense, Sunni theocracy and Shia theocracy, they are the same. You can say two sides of the same coin. And in reality, the Shia Iran has colluded with the Sunni jihadis. It could be if you say about Hamas, or even in a Israeli Gaza Strip, or even in West Bank. And you say, and in many cases, even recently Qatari opposition leader in one channel, in UK-based channel, he clearly said that Iranian government was colluding with the Muslim Brotherhood. And we know that, and I know Muslim Brotherhood had foothold in Western societies. So some people, even Bangladeshi liberal, what I call it, opinion leaders, on channels, they say, oh no, we don't want American intervention, and we don't, basically, whatever the death toll is inflated, and we don't want regime change for not wearing hijab. I'm appalled. I say, no, this time the movement is not limited with students. This time the movement encompasses the dock workers, oil workers in the refineries, truck drivers. It is a popular movement, covering all aspects of society. And I actually I've uttered too many things. And my point is that what do you think the future of Iranian movement, Iranian people's revolution, if you say, what do you think of the future?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, regime change that we saw in Bangladesh. The regime change in Bangladesh went against the secularist forces. But if there is a regime change in Iran, it will go in favor of the secularist forces. It's two different scenarios. In Bangladesh, we had some sort of secularism. It's not full secularism, at least some tolerance or some actions against the extremist Islamist forces were always being taken by the law enforcement under the former government under Sheikh Hasina. Now you see significant change. All these terrorists are basically they are now in power. They're controlling the power. In Iran, Iran is under complete theocratic Ayatollah rule. Very restrictive society, very controlled Islamic. In some cases, they are like so I mean, I say barbarian type role. They are doing justice in the name of justice. They are killing people by throwing stones and all this in this century. So if there is a change of the regime in Ayatollah, it will go in favor of the secular, democratic, liberal forces. So that's why all liberal democratic forces should support this regime change, even if they are not Iranians, I would say. So yeah, so in fact, and also in addition to this, barbarian type, you know, rule and everything, they're continuing for 47 years now. Economic conditions has gone very badly, has gone down very badly. So you see truck drivers, you see people of all different incomes are coming forward. Life has become very, very tough. Iran was a very rich country, I know myself. One of my uncles was a doctor. He went there in Iran. It was a very nice country. But after the change, after the fall of Shah, he actually left Iran. And I heard many good things about Iran, the Iranian people back at that time. And Iran was very modern country. It was going in that direction under the rule of Shah. So yeah, of course, he was a monarch. Of course, it was a royal kingdom, but he wanted to upgrade. He worked hard, very, very hard to upgrade the quality of life of all the Iranians that I see from my little effort in digging out, because I was an undergraduate student in 1978, and I was every day watching, and in our one TV channel, Dhaka TV channel, all the news. And all our newspapers are flooded with Iranian news in 1978 until 1978, and it's in 79 and also later on also. So
Supportive
that's
of the Ayatollahs in a sense.
yeah,
Those, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah, and that if you make parallels of the two, regimes, I'm talking about, basically when the Ayatollahs came to power, Khomeini came to power, there was, you could see they kill people and sometimes hanging on the top of the crane. And we see the same thing during the jihadi movement in Dhaka. Even in month of July, we saw dead bodies of some Awami Leaguers, would be police officer, hanging from the tree or under the bridge. And this never happened in Bangladesh, dead bodies. So it is a telltale sign of a jihadi movement. Don't you agree with me?
yes. You see, and we all observed those who are very cautious, from the beginning of this movement in 2024 in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, we observed that it was a different kind of movement because this movement was not in just street demonstrations. It was not just within the street. It went outside. They even burned a they've been burned the only tar factory in Bangladesh that used to supply 66% of the demands of tires in Bangladesh. They burned down the whole factory. They actually also killed workers. They did not let the workers out of the factory when they were putting it on fire. About close to 200 people were burned to death. And you see some similarity. This Islamist movement in Bangladesh was very much brutal, and you see law enforcement officials, police officers, they were hanged after they were killed brutally. They were burned to death. Some say a few thousand police officers. There are many reports saying that few thousand police officers were killed in Bangladesh. In Iran, this Islamists did almost similar things. Um, During the movement, they did mob violence. It was massive mob violence in Iran from 1978. They started this type of like killings very randomly. In Iran, in one of these cities, about 300 or so people were watching movie in a movie theater. They put fire on the movie theater. Almost all the you know um, people that were watching the movie were burned to death in Iran. So police force and the elite force Sabak, they actually took action against this, and there were killings on their side and also the police side. All these actually caused a lot of deaths, and all of this went against Shah. That as if Shah was not being able to control the scenario. And this that mob violence, actually, these Islamists throughout the world, they learned this mob violence from Iran from 1978 to 1979. Even the mobs in Iran went inside. It was just after the fall of Shah. The mob went inside the cantonment, and since the government of Shah fell, so the army chief, he was trying to negotiate. They killed him right there, and they killed another general right there. And actually, these mob actually did killing operations in Bangladesh. You see what is going on for last 1.5 year, mob violence.
We see also another thing. When the Islamists take over, like or political Islamists, if you say, Muhammad Morsi in Egypt, when he took power, actually he took power after so-called seasonal revolution, or you can say Orange Revolution, or anything you can say. So it was a organic, maybe foreign power was involved, but later on we saw American administration, probably under Obama, they were supportive of Morsi. But Morsi took over, and basically he expanded the Islamic ideology into judiciary and all branches of power. And he wanted to make it almost, the country, Islamized paradise, and and the process was almost irreversible. And thanks to our lucky star, the students, young generation, and secular people of the society, along with the army, part of the army in Egypt, they rose up. And I was in the Middle East at the time. I was in Kuwait. And at the time also, I was watching CNN and Al Jazeera, flipping through the channels. And I saw Al Jazeera was nakedly sympathizing with the Morsi government. Okay, now, even if you compare Morsi with Ayatollah is more dubious, more violent, and more conniving, or more dangerous, these Ayatollahs of Iran, and more medieval in a sense. Because you can say there are grades of Islamization or Islamist entities. So Morsi would be more, you can say, more modern Islamist. And you can compare Morsi with maybe Erdogan of Turkey, which is also Islamist, but in a modern facade. But Ayatollah, you can say Ayatollah Khamenei and his guardian council, their main motive was to bring back the country to almost 7th century utopia. Not they are not exactly at par with the modernism, and nothing to do with modernism. And not only that, they from the get-go they wanted the destruction of Israel, and because they want to wipe out Israel, and death to big Satan, America. So recently in one Bengali YouTube channel, I talked about Iran, and one Bengali, Bangladeshi origin guy, most probably the gentleman, I think of the left leanings, and said that I belong to the elite class, and then he wanted to point out my basically argue against my point when I said about that Iranian ayatollahs should not have so much grievances against America, because America in Vietnam and Cambodia, Laos, unfortunately, the past many of the administration, U.S. administration, they conducted some warfares, which ultimately, resulted in millions of deaths. That even in Vietnam, there was an Agent Orange, and all these people are still suffering, and there are a lot of anti-personnel mines. Okay, now they have history, but still, you can say, even if you go back to Japan, Japan got the nuclear bombs, was hit by America, but now Japan is a part of the new modern society. Same thing in Germany also. Defeated Germany is no more under Nazism. But talking about this, if you say that Iran, after ousting Shah was pro-West, definitely, but they were so much anti-America. For 444 days, the young Turks, they captured the U.S. embassy, and now U.S. embassy is like a museum. And not only that, they chant slogan every day. And I heard from one dissident Iranians living abroad that they used to walk on the Israeli flag every day. What happened? Why they are so much anti-Israel and USA? I can only say it has nothing to do with the Mossadegh. Obviously, Mossadegh, former prime minister, he was ousted by what I call it, former leader of Iran. He was it was reported that he was ousted by CIA and MI5, maybe British intelligence. Okay, Mossadegh, but Mossadegh was a socialist or nothing. He was not Islamist. Okay, now if somebody say that Iranians are upset because Mossadegh was ousted, but I tell you one thing, Dr. Ahmed, if Mossadegh would be alive today, he would be in jail, maybe in Evin prison in Tehran. So my point is that if Iranian regime wants to wipe out Israel, so Israel has every right to retaliate, and America also have the right to oust this cancer from the face of the world, because Iranian administration under Ayatollahs and Guardian Council, they don't want to cohabit with others. They want Islamic, so-called is Shiite or whatever it is, some kind of supremacy. They want a world under Sharia law. It could be Shia way or Sunni way, whatever it is. They don't want West to survive. So they like martyrdom. They like death more than life. You have any comment on that?
Yeah, I'd say like we need to look at where these ayatollahs come from. They have like religious educational institutions called Hausa. It's HAWZA, Hausa. It's like madrasa. I think probably these two countries, Iran and Bangladesh, I mean these two regions, Iran and also Bangladesh, Pakistan, we have this madrasa system. And in Hausa, they study only this, 7th century rule. They have a utopia that, oh, it was all nice and fine during that 7th century and 8th century and Muslim system and rule and everything. Same thing happens in the madrasas of Bangladesh. These people are not taught about the, science and technology and all this. And they are not taught about the modern philosophy, analytical philosophy, psychology, nothing. Only they learn these things. So they think all the solutions are in their Sharia. So they came up with at the end of their study is Sharia, Islamic Sharia. So they focus on Sharia and they think Sharia is the cure for all. So in a society, always there are some. It's not perfect in no country, and countries like Bangladesh, you can say that there are huge population in a small land area, so there are a lot of struggle for resources, and there are many disgruntled people always will be there. And so in that case, this Sharia loving people, they say, okay, Sharia is the solution. If you're dissatisfied, everything will be nice and fine. Honey and milk will flow everywhere. And if you take the path of Sharia, and that actually hypnotize many people. And through this process, they actually can, they actually sometimes they actually can fool many people, and that's what happened in Afghan Taliban. It's been happening in has have happened in Iran, and so in some places, sometimes like in Pakistan and our region also. It's always necessary to bring them out of this system, this institutional only, I mean, Sharia only study system, like in madrasas and all that. I think Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina tried last time, but it has not worked. She wanted to bring the students in the regular educational system, but no, they have not changed the indoctrination that occurred in their path of education in madrasa. They actually carry on, and it doesn't go away. So the thinkers, uh, educational thinkers, they need to think more and more about solving this problem. In my view, in Iran, this Qom is the capital of this madrasa system, this Hausa system there. So these ayatollahs are rigid Sharia loving people, and unfortunately, after the fall of Shah, they took over the control of a great country, Iran. And if there is a change of regime, as I said before, and I repeat, that it will be a good development, good achievement for the secular liberal people of Iran, and also for the rest of the world. You see, like, yeah, that success of the Islamic movement and capture of power by Ayatollahs actually energized all the Islamist forces in both Sunni, in Sunni world as well, because they thought, oh, okay, how we can trick, how can we deceive all factions of the society and bring all of the people, leftists, secularists, liberals, all we can deceive and bring onto the streets and make the fall of the little liberal government and take the control and take the country to the fully Sharia and theocratic path.
In a
And that's what.
sense, what you're saying that Islamists could be Shiite or Sunni of persuasion, create a system which becomes irreversible. And as I say sometimes that even man-made communism, sees death knell. Basically, even man-made communism can fall without much bloodshed. Even in a Soviet empire, I mean, countries of even Soviet Union disintegrated without much resistance. But when Allah or God is in the equation of governing a country, then it's much more tougher, difficult to uh, to oust certain regime. Unfortunate thing, what I say about in Bangladesh case, that many of the U.S. administrations, it could be Democrat or Republicans, they had a soft, touch, or they have a very sympathetic view about Bangladesh Jamati Islami of Bangladesh, which is nothing but a conduit of global jihad, which has connection with Taliban's, even you can say Al Qaeda also. But as you know that Bangladesh, Bangladesh Jamaat has a great linkage with the U.S. administration. In America, for example, Muslim Ummah of North America is a Bangladeshi American-based group which has got a strong lobbying power, and it's helping to enhance the progress of a Jamati political future. So Now, you know, in Bangladesh, Jamaat Islami, like many of the Islamist outfits of the world, they are capturing academia. You know, you can say most of the universities are basically under the guidance of Jamaat affiliated uh, educated teachers or PhD holders. Similarly, in the judiciary also, you can see pro-Jamatis or Jamati operatives are in the upper echelon of power, which is really a dangerous situation, creating an unbelievably treacherous path in Bangladesh. And I don't know, I don't see any clear picture whether Bangladeshi people like who support secularism or modernity would be able to oust the Jagaddal Pathar. You know, in Bangla we say the, you know, this choke of this demonic monsters. What's your take on this?
Yeah, actually, they use religion, and in the first place, all the Islamists, they use religion, and people are sensitive to their belief system, so they kind of accept what they say. And in Islam, there is a thing called takia, means when you are at war, you can deceive others. So these Islamists, they always think they are at war until and unless they get the Sharia implemented in their countries, in their respective countries. So always they will they will work to trick others and deceive others to get opinion in their favor, and that has been going on, always. So what they do in the Western world, they come and they say, okay, we are just sufferers. This regime is dictator or autocratic, fascist. But and also the Westerner, they say, oh, okay, these people are suffering. They become sympathetic to them, but because they don't know, because we grew in that type of environment. I'm from Bangladesh. You are also from Bangladesh. We know how terrible Jamaat Islami was in 1971. We saw these student cadres. They actually killed their professors, their own professors. They took them and they killed brutally. And about 1,000 intellectuals were killed in 1971 by mostly by Jamaati al-Badrs. They helped them. They wanted to get rid of the intellectual part, those who are like tolerant Islam. They are not, against religion, but they wanted to keep religion out of the politics, and that's what it's a crime to them. So it's very difficult, and I think the Western parts and other thinker, they need to look closely into their theocratic philosophy. They need to look closely what they think, what they preach, but they should not be. But they should be careful about their deceptive techniques. As if they say they are suffering, they are sufferers, they are being, in harsh uh, theocratic role, and they wanted to get more, tolerant and but what in the name of getting country into a tolerable environment, they actually create a fully rigid theocratic, just like ayatollahs did in Iran. And as you know, I read in many places that many Western media supported the fall of Shah, and many Western media carried on the messages of Ayatollah Khomeini day in, day out, and supported the movement against the Shah of Iran.
Same thing can be said about ousting of Sheikh Hasina. Most of the
Yes.
Western media supported
Yep.
that,
Yep.
basically. And before I sum up, I would say that one thing that when I compare the two diaspora, I'm still not very optimistic, and I don't see any rosy picture of the Bangladeshis living abroad, because Dr. Ahmed, you have intermingled with many Bangladeshi. You have neighbors from Bangladesh origin where you live. I see most of them are sympathetic to Jamaat BNP cause. Maybe if I'm not wrong, maybe 60 to 70% maybe pro Jamaat, pro BNP. Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which is nothing but a facilitator of Bangladesh Jamaat, BNP. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think
Expatriate Bangladeshis.
yeah, I see among we don't have many Bengalis living here. Very you know few people that I always have social interaction. Not many, and there are not many Bengalis living in North Florida. There are many Bengalis. They live in Miami, West Palm Beach area, but not in North Florida. So, but among those who are mostly professionals, they are not pro Jamaat. But I see like they have soft support for BNP mostly. I see many people, many of
Do
these.
they think about the genesis of Bangladesh? Do they care about 1971?
About 1971, some of them, I think many of them, they, I mean, it's not because those who I see, they are not born before 1971, or even they are born, they are very little, so they don't have any strong memory. And it is also true that most of the historical events, most of the uh, you know Nazi-like torture by Pakistani and Jamaat Islami forces were not portrayed and conveyed well to this generation.
Or well documented? It was not.
Well, yeah, there are good documents, but they are not portrayed. They are like, written in many places, but many of them they did not do much of. And also, our education system has some flaw. I can give an example. Like my daughter, when she was in her third grade, she was given an assignment that whichever country your parents are from, write something interesting about it. So my daughter asked me, she was in her third grade, probably third or fourth grade. And she asked me, I said, okay. She asked me that what should I write on Bangladesh? Yeah, you are from Bangladesh. I said, okay, you can write about 21st February. What is that? So I gave her all the information, and she wrote a nice summary of it. And also the teacher wanted her to present it in front of all the other students so that they could ask her question. She interacted with them, they interacted with her, and she knew very well about what happened for the mother language movement of the Bengalis. So, and in our education, like mostly you give some questions, read this, and then questions and answer an exam. I think we need to look into the way our young generation is taught and how the messages of our history conveyed to the successive generations. I think there are many learned men and women in Bangladesh. I hope they will think more and more about the mode and the method of education.
Actually, if we talk about heritage, and some people say, and I talk to some of my analyst friends who observe Bangladesh keenly, follow the events. Sometimes, we come to the one consensus that Bangladeshis probably are in identity crisis in Western world. Sometimes they may say whether we are first Muslim or Bangladeshi or Bengali, but they ignore that Bengali nation, the people of this land, this deltaic Gangetic delta called Bengal, East Bengal. We had a prominent Buddhist preacher like Atis Dipankar. Remember, Atis Dipankar spread Buddhism in Tibet and and many parts of that Southeast Asia. So Atis Dipankar came from this land. We had, if you go to certain old relics, you can see there was civilization hundreds of years ago. So we cannot say that we just came from nowhere. Bengali nation had heritage. Like the Iranians can be proud of their Persian heritage or Cyrus the Great and all these, So, and they are the forebearers of that heritage. And Iranians, they say we are first Iranian, Persian first, then Muslim or anything. But among Bangladeshis, this is not the same thing going on. And maybe a kind of a identity crisis, going on among the Bangladeshi diaspora. That might be the reason, maybe one of the reasons that they would lean towards BNP politics rather than talking about 1971 genocide. And I hear more and more from my friends who has some sympathy for the Bengali nation 1971's role. I mean, yeah, even young people who think about 1971, they say, okay, I went to maybe in Kansas and had been in a gathering, some PhD holders, maybe big university, Bangladeshi Americans. They would say, oh, in 1971, there are not so many people got killed. So that kind of revisionist history, tendency towards revisionist history is not uncommon among expat Bangladeshis, which is a deplorable, I can say, despicable. But this is happening also. I don't know today or tomorrow this will change, but the trend is not very good. And if you compare Iranians diaspora and Bangladeshi diaspora, it is not the same. That I want to emphasize. So you want to sum up something, Dr. Ahmed, in this
Yeah.
regard?
Okay. Thank you. Yes. In Iranian case, they are in dire situation because of 47 years of rule of Iran by the Ayatollahs. It's been going on in a brutal rule for a long time, and so they are with over time they have seen the effects of you know the effects of the brutal effects of Sharia law. They have seen, they have experienced, and many of them left their country because they could not withstand the situation there. In Bangladesh, we have not yet gone to that strict Sharia law. So the people in Bangladesh have not seen yet the real ill effects of barbaric Sharia law. They have not yet seen. So Iranians are living outside. They're more and more united, and they're trying to get their country back into the modern path. In Bangladesh, I hope it does not happen. And in Bangladesh, there is a good number of liberal forces still there. Awami League is a party. They actually represent the liberal, even though they have uh, many deviations over long number of years on the issue of true path of secularism. But yet, this is the only party that we can count on. We can still rely on. There is no alternative, and that's why we all kind of aspire for getting this party back into their feet in Bangladesh, get back their hold in the politics of Bangladesh. But unfortunately, Dr. Yunus, apparently, supposedly a liberal, secular individual, now in power, but he banned Awami League to give free pass for the for the Sharia loving Islamists into power, Jamaat Islami.
Good
So
point. Very
I
good
hope,
point.
yeah, I hope it does not go into that level. If BNP comes to power, there will be a better scenario than Jamaat Islami coming to power. But if Jamaat Islam comes to power, then the diaspora or the people Bangladesh living abroad will see what are the real ill effects of Sharia. What are the real barbaric effects of Sharia? They will see once Jamaat Islami comes to power.
Thank you, Dr. Shabbir Ahmed, for depicting basically the scenarios in two countries. And today's episode, Iran and Bangladesh, a tale of two countries. It was nice talking to you. We'll talk more. And thanks for coming to the Voice platform. Have a
Thank you.
nice day.
Thank you again for letting me discuss about these issues. Thank you.